Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am thrilled to welcome as a guest today Rebecca Paris. She is a former advertising and marketing executive as well as a portrait artist. After a spiritual awakening, she was guided to found raisingthevibe.org, a resource hub for expanding consciousness. She currently offers one-to-one guidance in Gene Key's profile sessions. Her perspective on our matrix of reality is illuminated in the free ebook, The Matrix Resurrections Unraveled. She is also a co-creator of the online course, Awakening to the Real You. Welcome, Rebecca. I'm really happy to have you.
No, same here. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And we were already just having such a great conversation before we hit record. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing you and your work with the listeners today. Rebecca, I would love for you to share with us, more about your journey of what inspired you to this path, right? Because a lot of people have that desire to instill change, but not many actually implement that change and look to be of service to others. So I'd love to hear more about what led you there.
Yes. Well, unlike some of the people who are, in the awakening circles, I did not have any connection with spirituality or religion as a child. I never had big events happening that, woke me up, and I was always awake to it. I led a pretty much 3D life, very focused on, getting a good education, a job. Yeah, I was in the corporate world in advertising and was VP of marketing at United Way. Left to have two children, and I think what caused the start of all of this was the two children that I had were very sensitive souls. You could probably neurodiverse, and they didn't really fit in the world as we know it. So I was doing just fine with, fitting in the corporate world, doing the thing that we're all supposed to do, right? And then they come along, and that kind of like shook my reality a little bit about, trying to just get them through school was such a challenge. And then the real awakening came in 2017. My daughter was off in college, and she was on the phone with me. She's always been, pretty dramatic about things, but she was explaining a situation with two of her friends that was, very negative, but, life-threatening with them. I realized that it couldn't have been a coincidence. The happening that she told me had to be something outside of the realm that I knew, outside of the realm of just the five senses. So like something on the walk just opened up in me, like, well, what could it be? And then I've never really explored religion or spirituality very much, but I just went on this deep dive with talking to all my friends, saying, asking what, do you have any insight into, how this could have happened? And then I just started opening up and following the signs. I remember being out on a walk. I decided to go a different way with my dog. And then there was this brochure, it was on the middle of the walk, about mind and body, the mind-body connection. And I just started seeing the signs, and I was allowed to, in some part of me accepted that this was the breadcrumbs that I needed to start the journey. And so I just did a deep dive on the intersection between science and spirituality, because like one of your other guests, I felt like I had to prove, like, I didn't know this woo-woo side at all. So I had to get through some sort of quantum physics or something. So I read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, which was very helpful to get me there, as well as Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, and understanding consciousness. Everything's about your level of consciousness and how you explore the world. And from there, it just snowballed into, I've got to know more, and just was relentlessly reading every book I could get my hands on.
Mhm. I really love that you shared that because, like you said, and there is some kind of catalyzing event for many people. Um, kind of both aspects of what you're sharing happened on my own journey as well. But I love that you share so much about how you were willing to continue following the signs because that's really in my experience and opinion, that's really more of what our experience is here on a day-to-day basis. It's being in devotion every day, right? To following those divine breadcrumbs,
Mhm.
to following the sign and to persevering, to, really showing up to our experience here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you tell us more about the gene keys? Because, I've had several guests and talked a lot on this show about human design, but not as much with the gene keys. I'd love for you to share more with us your work on that.
Sure. Well, the Gene Keys found me early on in my journey, probably the first year of my awakening. A friend of mine who was doing specialized kinesiology, the muscle testing, found this book, and then I immediately took to it because Richard Rudd was a student of human design. So he studied that with Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design. For 7 years, he's written books about it and then had his own kind of epiphany come through with like 3 days of just being downloaded with other information that really stood on the shoulders of human design. And he added more like the DNA codes, he added words and levels of frequency for each of the archetypes, which are outlined in the I Ching. And then he put it in a format like a tree of life format that really shows you through the words and the gene key numbers your life's purpose, your work, your biggest challenge in life, your radiance, and many other spheres that really talk about the emotional suffering and relationship issues that you go through to actually go through your dharma and your karma to get to your life's work and hit your purpose. So and it really what I loved about it was it had that science part that I really kind of craved. I really wanted to understand, well, how does this tie with the DNA? And he goes into that as well with the codon rings and the amino acids and how these all code with the amino acids in the body. But he also is really good at blending the right side and the left side, which was very important as well. The intuitive and the intellectual and weave them together nicely. And so I became a Gene Keys guide, I believe in 2021, because I've just continued to honor the teachings from that. And I get, I still things pop out of my chart. I'm like, oh, that's why, that's why that's there. And it just makes so much sense. It's like a guiding light for you to awaken, to know who you really are at a spiritual level.
How has your curiosity around exploring more of the spiritual aspect of things contributed to expanding your own intuitive development?
Yes, that's a great question. I would categorize myself before this awakening as very masculine energy, had a lot of, lead this organization, I'm very action oriented. I really couldn't sit and meditate. But before the awakening, which I probably led to the opening to my awakening, I became a portrait, I just started to explore the arts. And that really helped balance the energies in my field as an artist, and then just really intuiting and working on portraits. But the spirituality is just like it. I still have a hard time sitting still, but I am so honoring of the receptive side because I realized I wasn't able to receive. I was always doing and giving and was kind of a martyr, and that whole feminine intuitive side was not really showing up in my life, well, especially before becoming an artist. But then I realized that's actually my whole path in the Gene Keys is my life's work is the number two, which is unity, which is the most feminine key in all of the archetypes. So I'm here to go to balance the prime masculine and the prime feminine. So that's been a big theme in my life about getting into the intuitive side out of the logical side. And it's been quite a challenge, honestly.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I asked the question because that aspect is really such an important part of contributing to our ongoing ascension. Gene keys and human design and astrology in of itself, they're tremendous tools and ways for us to feel supported in gaining more clarity around our sense of self and who we are. And what often can happen too is that someone can become more reliant on the tool, right? Telling them who they are versus actually really learning how to, the word digest is coming forward, right? To really begin to embody those
Mhm.
aspects of the truth of who they are. Because, you can read all the information in the world, but if you don't actually feel that sense of clarity anchored into your physical body, right?
Yeah.
Then how impactful can you be?
Right. Exactly. That was a big lesson for me because I was very more into I started the path through the mind. And some people start it through this, through spirituality, just the essence of I know that we're all one, and then just coming at it from a very spiritual side. Some people come through it through the physical, the body, the yoga. My daughter's a yoga teacher, and really that's somatic learning. And I entered the world through the mind. And so it's really challenging, for me to know that I really have to embody that. My first inclination, which again, raising the vibe came about, was I need to share this. I've got this information. I've got to share this with the world and let everybody know, right? And then that's important. But then later on in the journey, you realize, oh, it's just about me embodying my divine self. It's really about collecting the fragments of the traumatized selves that we have and bringing them back into the body and changing the DNA. So the course that I have is really of my friend is really about activating your dormant DNA. And that is exactly what you're talking about, is embodying. That's how you embody it. And then again, your podcast is all about opening the heart, the awakened heart. The heart is the big way, the transmitter and the way to open up into the embodiment process. But it takes more than you think from the physical body standpoint.
Yeah, I'd love for you to share more with us about how you define dormant DNA. Like, is it just like infrastructures within an existing DNA strand that you're saying are dormant, or?
Yeah, so I believe in really the Emerald founder teachings, the eternal life teachings that really talk about the human body, the original human, the organic human, I believe, was created with 12 strands of DNA. And the way I look at
Yes.
DNA is antennas to other worlds, your ability to traverse and connect with other realities at different frequency levels.
Mhm.
So we have the ones that we know about on this physical body, but there's more etheric DNA, but it got unplugged at some point in our history. So what science, you wonder, well, why would there be so-called junk DNA? That makes no sense. The science, well, there's junk DNA, it's just not coding. So what I'm talking about is the potential DNA is uncoded intron DNA, which is just dormant DNA that hasn't really connected the codes yet. And through, from a scientific point of view, ascension to me is activating the codes to connect all of your DNA that's in your body. You just need to get them to start talking to each other so you
Yeah.
can experience multidimensional reality.
Yeah. Oh, you're so speaking my language. I had a feeling I had to ask you because I had a feeling I'm like, is she going to talk about the 12 strands? Because, yes,
Yeah.
I share that perspective.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, we have just so much untapped divine power and potential, within us. Like we're barely, not even really barely
Right.
even scratching the surface. It's just like crazy amazing how powerful we are. I could talk to you all day just about that one
Yeah,
topic,
it's
probably.
unusual. Not many people understand about the DNA or the 12 strands. So
Oh,
it's
yes. Yeah, you're speaking my language for
uh,
sure. So I'd love for you actually just to shift gears a little bit and share with us more about your book because, of course, you had me at Matrix your introduction, right? Because we really do live, although we are, as a collective shifting into higher frequencies of consciousness, we have been and still are in many ways living in this world that is hugely inverted and inverted both in the macro and and the micro. So I'd love for you to share with us more about that.
Sure. Well, the book is just an ebook I have on my website, and it's called The Matrix Resurrections Unraveled. And as soon as that last Matrix movie came out, I've been a fan of the Matrix for a while, and after watching the movie several times, you start picking up more. But I was really intrigued with the last one, and just got inspired to really decode it. Really, we do everything for our own work, and then it just becomes out of a product to share with others, because I really wanted to understand it. But that really showed me, I believe it's more of a documentary, some people say, the Matrix movies, that there is a matrix of reality. It's like we're playing in a video game, and the Matrix shows exactly how we are in a matrix, that movie. It's like you see Neo with the binary, his work is called binary, right? Which is the duality that we're in. So I believe that there's an inorganic matrix, which is the duality, the good and evil, and we're fighting back and forth with that. But I believe there's also an organic matrix that the divine self was supposed to be able to play in. And that's that 12-stranded DNA, and that's the Trinity. And what's different about it is, instead of just the black or white, there's the Trinity is really talking about that neutral God force that is fully sustaining all of life. That's what I feel like in this matrix, we don't have that neutral force pulling it all together and maintaining the energy. So instead of creators, which we were designed to be, we're here to create and enjoy, we became consumers. So the book talks about how we are trapped through like pharmaceuticals, the red and the blue pill, the distractions from the phone, through time, through all different things. But it also discusses how Neo and Trinity show how you can escape. And some of those ideas are a leap of faith, which they've done, and really having to fight for it, and body consciousness. When they touch hands, you see that their bodies remember, like, even though their mind doesn't know, they don't know each other, but when they actually touch and the bodies connect, there's something that intuitive, that feeling sense that knows that they know each other and that they're here for a bigger reason. So it just kind of goes into all the different things about the Matrix. And then I have in the course, Awakening to the Real You, we have a whole category on the ego versus the divine self, and and knowing if you're in the organic reality or the phantom or false reality. And to know that the organic reality is all about expansion and sovereignty and creation and love, and just doing what feels right, and in a balance between the masculine and the feminine. The inorganic reality is about everybody has to be homogeneous. They have to go to the school system, learn the same things, become a colony of workers. And it's basically reversed. So the inorganic matrix is the reversal of what I believe we were really here created for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Something I speak about often, because I teach a lot about truth and intuitive development and helping people to really open their channels, is that in tuning into what truth feels like for you, which can be unique for each of us, right? I think the commonality of what it means to feel truth in your body, it's really coming back to a state of love, essentially, which a lot of people associate love as an emotion. And it is, and it can be perceived as such, but it's really more of a frequency. And that tuning into that, you can then use that as the basis to navigate anything, to determine whether it's illusory or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, the illusion is all around us. I mean, it is like crazy because it's really down to the granular level too. Like I just wrote something the other day about our relationship to belonging. like what we feel like it means to belong, right? Which we've been taught in many environments that it means to conform,
Right.
because we are in our divine nature beings that desire to belong, to be together because we're all actually one, right? But what's happened is that's been inverted like
Mhm.
so many other things. So
Right.
yeah, that's just one example, right? It's so crazy, and this conversation is so awesome. So tell me, who do you work with? If someone's looking to receive support, um, who typically would you work with as a client?
I think oftentimes we attract clients that are in the beginning stages of what we've already kind of graduated from. So
Yeah.
my life, my awakening path was really about self-love and realizing that martyrdom was not a form of love. That when you give yourself away, it's really like a form of self, not, deprecation. It's just you're giving all of yourself away. But what happens is it's like it's the imbalance, and pretty soon you become really resentful, even though I've done so much for you, and then the other party's just receiving, and they're like, well, you're the one that's given me, all this energy and all this support and all this money. And then you realize that you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it out of a sense of needing to be loved. So I really had to step out of the martyrdom and over giving and really find the balance of receiving. And this kind of ties into the codependency that I had with my children. So I was just always rescuing them, always wanting to make sure that they didn't get hurt by this world. As very, very sensitive souls, I felt like I was this guardian that was heading in front of them to clear everything in their path. But obviously that doesn't work because they've got to learn, they've got to spread their own wings and have their own trials. But just was kind of living for them and really ignored some of my own desires. I had this deep need for service, so I was uber volunteer. I ran all of these volunteer organizations, but then what ended up, about 10 years ago, I found a naturopath and realized that I was in adrenal fatigue, and I didn't even know because I was just so constantly going. And then I just had to just step back and take some time for me. So
For someone who is in a space where they're either taking that initial step, right? Like maybe they're feeling like they want to leave their corporate career or whatever career they're in to dedicate themselves to the service that they're being called to.
yes.
Or it's someone who's already been doing that and feeling called to step into that next evolution of their mission and purpose. What are your top pieces of advice that you would want to share for someone to navigate that journey with a little more ease and grace?
Yeah, it is a tough one. Well, the first one is like you and I were talking about before we started this recording is um that following the breadcrumbs, really awakening to the signs that are showing up in your day-to-day life. As I said, that I saw that brochure, and then I'd, get an insight from, I had this opening that just, I kept hearing this part of me that said, you have a purpose, you have a purpose. So it's just really listening to those whispers that are with you, your guidance, your higher self, and taking note of that, because those are here to support you. That those whispers are the ones that know exactly what's needed for your happiness. Even paying attention to dreams. I had a dream, I consciously uncoupled from a 27-year marriage 5 years ago. And it was a good marriage by all, had risen to the top of the matrix of what it's supposed to be, living in this world, and then realized that there was something missing. And so it's being brave enough to listen to the intuitive voices, and knowing that it's kind of a trust fall in some ways, knowing that you have to at some point listen and then trust by shutting the doors to the formal life. So I actually decided, I just heard I needed to move to Asheville, and I just I had a dream that like what my life would be like if I stayed. And it's basically similar to the Matrix, like eating steak at the country club with this other couple who's miserable. This other couple is miserable, and I'm eating steak with the partner, that's not fitting me. I'm like, oh, I see. So just even listening to dreams really give you hints like that. And then really spending time alone, whether, starting a meditation practice if you don't have one, journaling to really help that higher aspect of you come out and give you the information that's necessary. And just be willing to shut the doors once you make that move on the old life, because that energy needs to close off because before the new doors can open for you. And a lot of people are like straddling, and I understand how you need to straddle at some point both worlds, but at some point you need to step in and trust that your higher self and the universe has got your back. So those are some of the, I guess, the keys of, and just being courageous to know that the most important relationship is not with any family member or anything else. It's with your soul. So you've got to know that you are here because your soul came here with a mission. And if you ignore that, you've discounted all the work that you've done to come down here, because you've got to listen to your soul. And that's the most important relationship you have. Then after that, everything will fall into place. All other relationships will fall into place.
Yeah. I mean, that's the greatest challenge of all, is doing the trust fall, essentially, with God, with source, whatever that higher power is for you, with yourself, with your soul. And you never know the whole path ahead before you have to do that. And whenever we're feeling resistance, that's a sure sign, right, that we're not doing
Right.
that. And a lot of times, if we can just eventually ease into that space of surrender, of letting go, things can actually fall into place for us much more
Yeah.
quickly in that one act of
Yeah.
surrender.
And that's what I did as soon as I moved here. I got a townhome and I didn't know where I was. Got an Airbnb first, and then ended up just like that. Pretty soon I needed to get out of there, and just was on a walk, talked to the neighbors. Oh, and they said, "Oh, I think there's this townhome opening up here." I'm like, "Okay." I went over there, and of course they were outside. I talked to them. I ended up just seamlessly falling into this rental, in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and ended up meeting a partner 3 months later and buying, getting this house. And it's just, it will open up for you if you allow it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca, what a pleasure to have you. And so many topics that we just kind of briefly touched over that I could talk to you for days about, but I think it's just enough to pique listeners' curiosity. And I definitely would encourage whoever is listening to check out your book, absolutely, to read more about that. And for those who are wanting to connect with you more deeply, where is the best place for them to go?
Yes. Raisingthevibe.org is my nonprofit, and that's more for just exploring awakening. I've got tools on there categorized as know thyself, heal thyself, and embody your true self. And in the know yourself, it's like the Akashic, information on what is the Akashic record, what is human design, what is the gene keys, what is the Enneagram, all these tools that I've experienced. Healing yourself goes into all sorts of energy modalities that you can really start deleting the ego and the false self, and really coming into your true self through the energy healing modalities. And then knowing your true self is really about all the ascension techniques and the meditation, in the course actually comes with the meditations about your DNA. So raisingthevibe.org is just there as a service to humanity. I don't have a lot of me on there, but it's there for anybody who finds it. And I have a whole resource list, including tons of books I've personally read and categorized them. So just starting there with the reading of the books or finding the meditations there. But the main way to reach me is RebeccaParis.com. And I'm a one-on-one coach. I do gene key sessions, and then you can also learn more about the course Awakening to the Real You on that side, as well as finding the ebook about the Matrix.
Tell us a little bit more, if you don't mind, about your course.
Yes. Well, I just got inspired with the one person that I knew here in Black Mountain, a good friend of mine, Becca. She and I have been on the similar path here, kind of working together having that buddy, helps you make the moves that are more in alignment. So we came up with a course, and it really goes, it works with your left brain and your right brain about the intellectual material about really what is the nature of our reality. And, people who've been down the rabbit hole really understand that the reality, we're in a hologram, or, a holographic reality, we're the projectors of it. And it's based light, sound, and sacred geometry. So we talk about that in the first part of the course. The second section is the miraculous human body, and really understanding your multidimensional self, your light body, the different DNA strands and the different levels that you are, not just this physical body. The third section is the ego versus the divine self, which we were talking about. The ego is navigating the false matrix, the divine self's navigating the organic matrix. And how do you know the difference? And we use all sorts of movies to really explain, it's right there, in plain sight with all these science fiction movies of what's really going on in this reality. So like the Truman Show, the Matrix, Free Guy, and we talk about how you can, navigate, how to help the ego integrate into the divine self, and then all these ascension tools. And paired with each of the sections is this deep meditation that my friend Becca does to really help you embody the material. So again, awakening to the real you, navigating your navigating our multidimensional realities, the full title. So it's definitely worth it if you really want to just jump into kind of, I wouldn't say the deep end, I'd say like the middle area of the pool. So
Yeah, yeah, sounds fascinating. Absolutely. Rebecca, just in closing in this now moment, is there anything else that you're being guided to bring forward?
Yeah, it just occurred to me about, again, how important balance is. And, in the medicine wheel, they've talked about like the north, south, east, west, and how you're trying to balance and being in the middle. And my work is, in the Gene Keys really talk about balancing the opposite. So, just really wanted to express that, I'm in a female body, but I have masculine energy and feminine energy. And the key for all of us, no matter how we, what gender we are in this plane, it's really balancing the doing and the being. And a lot of times we're either polarized in one way or the other, but that is really the key to ascension, is to have those in perfect balance to get into 0 point, so you can traverse this plane of existence. So again, balancing the doing and the being, I think, is important to end with here.
Absolutely. Such sage advice. Thank you so much, Rebecca. What a pleasure to have you today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.